Greetings, everyone. Oh, I'm so happy to be back. I'm happy the sun is shining. I'm happy that my window is open a little bit, a little crack. We've had a really hard winter, as a lot of you have, and I've been starting to get really nervous about my garden because, you know, we usually have a winter garden. I have some crops outside, some things like cabbages and broccoli, those kind of things. My nasturtiums are coming in. I've got a lot of wood sorrel to harvest in the back, and I have seedlings, and I'm growing my sweet potato slips. You can see back here, and then after I take them from here, I bless them in the Buddha up in the window, and then they go into. I'm developing roots, and they're growing so fast. I'm getting so many of them. I'll show you that in another video. And I have seedlings. My front hallway is just a whole shelf full of all kinds of seedlings. A lot of them are ready to be potted up. Things like for, you know, my summer garden, like tomatoes and peppers particularly. And they're growing, and I'm worried because our nighttime temperatures are still, our daytime temperatures are low. Our nighttime temperatures are still down into the 40s, which for Southern California is unheard of at this time of the year. That would ever be that cold, and highs in the 50s. I hardly can recall. It's just constant, and constant rain. We've had so much rain. The yards are flooded, everything's flooded. My chickens have had to spend most of the winter in their run, enclosed run, because the yard is just, their chicken yard is just been a river most of the winter. But the sun has finally come out, and we have stepped outside to try to get, you know, some of the mess. My husband's been going crazy because of he calls all the weeds, and the grass is high in the front. And that's not something we normally deal with too much here because we don't have a lot of rain. So high grass is very rare. But right now it's very high, and there are just the weeds and everything everywhere. All of us were starting to look in the weeds, we're starting to look in the grass, and he was ready to go out with his weed whacker or whatever to level the grass. And stop, we said stop, because in that grass we started to find a lot of treasures. There were things growing, crops growing in our yard that we didn't even think about. Some of them, we knew we had some nettles that were coming up. We knew we had some, like I did mention, the nasturtiums, the wood sorrel, which are very short, narrow windows here usually that we can harvest those. But we found all kinds of other things that are going to be very beneficial to us here at the Crone House. So I wanted to show you today a little trick of what I'm going to be doing with it. You've seen my parlor many times, and you've seen the cupboards that I have in jars and everything, many herbs and flowers and all kinds of things and oils that I use for magical purposes. I make my own blends, I make my own oils, I make my own spells, I make my own everything like that. But you've seen me use this book. This is my Book of Shadows, okay? And as you can see, it's a mess. I've got ribbons marking places, and I've got Post-its stuck in there everywhere, even down here. I've got tabs. Because this book has been for me a place to go to find out, for instance, what I want to do with stinging nettle. Well, I'll say stinging nettle because that's in front of me, so that's what I'll talk about. There's a lot of magical uses for stinging nettle. I use stinging nettle to use in spell work. I use it in poppets. I use it in magical herbs. You know, there are a lot of magical purposes for it. I also use stinging nettle in my kitchen to cook. It's delicious, and it's good for you. It's like green. I have it in here in this cookbook, which you can see. This is my personal little recipes that I develop from time to time. I have some ideas. I have some uses for stinging nettle in here. I also have uses where I first started using stinging nettle in a little cookbook that I made years ago that I used in my historical recreation group, cooking period recipes using things like stinging nettles. Was a very common ingredient for people in in Europe, particularly Western Europe, during the Middle Ages, they used them all the time. They had a readily supply of stinging nettles, and they did use them. They were very valuable food source for them. So as you can see, I have them in here, I have them in here. But today I'm talking about using stinging nettles for a completely different reason. And this is why I got the idea for this book. I decided I wanted to show you a way when I wanted to do something with stinging nettles. Here, I dried them because stinging nettles are the window is short, particularly here in Southern California. They come out in the spring. We see them in late winter and early spring because that is where the moisture, we have the rain. This year we have a lot of them, but they grow. And then, you know, as the weather gets too warm for them and too dry, they start to seed and flower, and then they're really no good for me to eat or to use medicinally. And that's what we're talking about today. So I wanted a way to make sure that I have a way to organize those herbs and flowers that I'm going to use at home, not for magical use, but for home use. And I'm talking about making things when I want to use them for health or I want to use them for healing. You see, we can eat them, we can eat them, we can use them for magic, and we can use them for healing, a lot of them for health and healing. Okay, so we're going to be talking today deliberately, we're going to mainly, specifically about brews and potions. I'll get to that in a minute, I'll show you what I mean. But in the meantime, I want to tell you that when they're all in one place, like in a book of shadows, which we tend to do as witches, we tend to stick everything in one place, but you can see it's so hard to find things. And when I come across, when I'm out and about, and I come across something growing wild, like in a park or in a, you know, a place where I know it hasn't been sprayed, I want to be able to see, what is that exactly? Is this a kind of nettles? No, nettles are pretty easy, but is this a kind of plantain, or is this a kind of, you know, is this dock, or what exactly is this? Is this something I can use? Things that I don't normally see much of in my yard, or in a very limited supply in my yard, if I find useful elsewhere. I want to be able to identify it. So that's what I'm going to say. I decided to come up with an herbal grimoire just for healing, health and healing, and home use, any home use. Because some things, let's be honest, like some teas and things are going to be for pleasure. A lot of things are for pleasure, but these are not necessarily the uses, the magic uses, and you know, the magical uses, which would be in here. It's not necessarily the recipes I want, like if I want to cook with them and make cheese or whatever I want to do with them, those would be in some place like this, which we can deal with this all later. But this is something new. So I'm going to be putting this in a new little book. And just what you need, oh, another little book. I came up with a way of organizing the book that I think is some useful information for you. Whether you do it my way or not, I think you might find my information useful to organize it, because I think that's where we fall short. I just wanted to say, especially in my earlier years on here on YouTube, so many younger witches and older witches too, but when we started sharing ideas, I think when the community was really active in sharing a lot of these ideas, a lot of people were caught up on the idea of a book of shadows. They wanted a book of shadows, and they wanted a beautiful book of shadows like they saw in the movie Practical Magic, or they saw it, you know, maybe Hogwarts or somewhere. They saw these beautiful book of shadows, and a lot of people took advantage of that and started selling, like, set us a book of shadows and everything. And the main complaint there was, it's hard to organize them, because you can have set aside a place for, let's say stinging nettles, and you can start a section on stinging nettles. But then what happens if you need some more space, or how do you know exactly how many herbs you're going to have, or how are you going to organize something that is actually for healing and something else is actually for magic? You know, when you're trying to look for something for magic, for a purpose, you look for the purpose before you look for the thing that you're growing. If the idea of putting it in a beautiful book didn't appeal to you because it was hard to organize. You didn't know how many pages to leave for sections, etc. Some people came up with the idea of organizing pages, beautifully done pages, like a template that was beautifully illustrated or beautiful fonts or whatever they were using, and making beautiful pages, but they would be, you could move them around because they were made to go in a 3-ring binder. That's a good idea. It's a very, very good idea. But I have to admit, it never appealed to me because I don't associate a Book of Shadows with a 3-ring binder. It doesn't seem very magical to me. I don't know, I'm sure it is, but it just doesn't seem very magical. And I didn't like, again, we had the same issues as we had in an original Book of Shadows when we have your uses for nettles, your magical uses for nettles, your, you know, your culinary uses for nettles, and then you have your health and healing uses for nettles. It just seemed really clumsy, awkward to me. Now, some of you might be able to do that very easily, but for me, it was really hard. So I have a little solution that I just want to share with you. It's very simple, very kind of nuts, but I want to share it with you. And because I use mostly things that I have for other reasons, but because I had some trouble finding some of the items that I wanted to use, I'm going to be sharing the links to some of the things that I use in case you want to find those yourself, kind of some time off your own searching. And since I'm going to be doing that, I thought I would also start sharing some of the links that I use in these videos with you that you can get on Amazon or elsewhere, if I can think of it. But if you buy them particularly from Amazon and you use my link, it's going to help me out a little bit. I found that I could do that, and that's going to be very helpful. But you know, you don't need to. That's just in case you want to. And that would help me, and I would appreciate it. But I'm going to show you what I made, and I'm going to show you how I set it up, the organization that I set it up, because whether you make something like I make or you do something entirely different, it might give you some things to think about. Okay, so when I was looking for a little notebook, I thought, you know, I got the idea actually from this, the one I use for these little recipes that I use. I really like this. I think I got it at the dollar store years ago. I don't even know why, but I liked it because it was coated and you could, could be wiped off. But also, what I really liked about it is it's, as you can see, I'm very unorganized. Look at this. But my point is, I liked it particularly because it has, it's a wide rule. It's pretty much of a wide rule. The lines are spaced a little bit far apart because I write a little bit big. I just don't like things too crowded. And I like that. I like that it laid open, you know. So if you're, you know, when you're working, it lays open. It's not like a journal, like my bullet journal that I use, which, well, it lays down but you see how it, you know, it doesn't really lay open. You know, you can make it, but it's kind of a trick, you know, to let it lay open. But because I have these bullet journals that I've been using, I have a lot of materials. Like I have stickers and I have washi tape and things like that I really like to use. They make it really nice for me when I'm organizing myself. So I wanted something that was, you know, the paper stood up enough from, you know, that I could, you know, the paper wasn't so thin that I could not use my normal supplies that I use in here. For instance, I like to use these micron pens because they won't fade and they're, you know, they're nice to use and they're nice and they come in different sizes. This is an 03 and I have, you know, different, I usually use a 1, a 3, or a 5. Those are my normal ones, but I use these all the time. So I always have this kind of a pen on hand. I wanted something that I could use that would stand up to this, but I also wanted something that I could use to stand up to my markers. You know, my markers here, I have my, this is my bouquet. You probably can't see it, but it's a bouquet of I keep in my little crock here, of my Tombows, which are water-based markers. I love these. I use them for everything. It has both a painting tip a tip that will, you know, that you can paint on one end, and it also has, you can write on the other end, and it's just really nice. But I wanted to be able to do that without it bleeding through. I didn't want it to bleed through. Some of these little notebooks, the paper is so thin that it will bleed through when you write it. So I didn't want that. And I meant this to be something that, you know, that was small enough that I could carry with me. So I went on Amazon and I did a search. I want to tell you, I did a search, and I was looking for those criteria. And it wasn't easy because most of these, this is a really light size. I think this is a, something like a, I want to say it's a 5x9 or a 6x9. Let me get my ruler. I see what it is. What is it? Okay, it's a 7. What is that? 8. It's about an 8 inches, and it's about, yeah, it's a 6x8, something like a 6x8. But you can carry it around. You can carry it around with you, which I intend to be able to do this because if I'm going to be foraging or whatever, want something that if I come across something in the wild that I can use, I want to be able to have something to take with me. Also, when we go and do our bus, we can't. I like them also because it has a, look how nice it is when I come. And this is a resealable bag. I won't keep it the bag. This is one I haven't used yet. But the cover is like it's like a heavy plastic cover, but it's textured and it's coated. So it was really lovely. It was just a really nice thing, and a double set of spiral so that it doesn't, you know, it stands up to a lot of opening and closing and things like that. So I came across these, and of course then I got into a dilemma because they come in different colors. And I don't know about you, but when I see different colors, I kind of go crazy. But so I ended up getting a 6-pack. And the 6-pack had a black and this color green, and it had a red, and it had like a light blue and a pink. And then it had a green that I ultimately went with, this color green. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But they also, to make it a little more complicated, they also, those are all in, it's not really called a wide ruled, you go by dimension. I had to look it up and see what is the dimension, the difference between college ruled and wide ruled. And these are the right ruled, and they come in the rule, or they also come in a graph, which, oh, that sold me on these things. And I ended up buying a set of the ruled, a 6-piece set of that one, and a 6-piece of this one, because we're doing so many projects in this house. We're remodeling our bathroom. We're doing gardening projects outside. We're doing a bus remodel. So I knew my husband would want one, and he has taken one of these. And then I started to use this one for a tarot thing that I'm doing with some people on, well, I found out about it on Circle of Kindreds, I think, and then I think it's started from someone in Boho Tarot. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're doing a deck and walk, which is a way of combining the astrology with tarot. That's just to put it aside. But anyway, I needed something. This is a year-long journey, and I needed something for that. And I thought, oh, while I'm doing that, I might use it for this. And this worked really well because look how nice the paper is. I've just begun it, but I was able to put, you know, my own readings in here. And there I'm using the Tombow. Here I'm using the Micron pen. Nothing bleeds through. So I thought this was just really, you know, this is a perfect book to use. So I have enough little books to last me forever. But we have a lot of ideas for using from them. Okay. So anyway, I picked for this Herbal Grimoire of mine, I picked a green, and I wanted to, this is sort of an aside. I want to tell you, this is kind of funny, but this is Bird. This is my crow. I've had this water bottle. I just want to tell you on your side. I've had this water bottle, for years. My grandson gave it to me for a birthday gift one year. And I love it because it's this texture. It's thermos. It's thermal. It keeps things cold for hours and hours. And I just love it. This is a Tree Tribe. There's different brands of these. But I just love the feel of it in my hand. It's not slippery. It doesn't get hot or cold. And when my daughter was here in the summer helping my husband after his surgeries, she saw my water bottle and she thought, oh, he needs a water bottle too. So she got him a water bottle, but she went a further distance and to try to give him something to give him some, encouragement in his healing. She decorated with all kinds of stickers, and she even put buses on there because she knew he was waiting to see how his health was going, whether he could actually do the bus and things like that. So it was really, this was very motivational for him. But I was so jealous because his is so beautiful with the stickers. I had no stickers at all. I had no stickers. So I thought, oh, I was going to buy some stickers. And I ended up buying some real fun stickers. And these are like, these are like stickers from psychedelic hippie stickers or something like that, which is called. I thought that was funny. But they're lovely stickers, and there's all kinds of things that I could choose, for my that are sort of what I think. I'm a fan of the Beatles, and so I thought this would be really fun. Okay, and while I was looking for stickers, I came upon this crow sticker, and I thought, oh, I would love to have that on my bottle because I wrote into Crone. That's my blog name, and Crow, my relationship with Bird and the crows in my neighborhood, and it came to me. And I thought, oh, it's fun. And then I also found some tarot stickers, different kinds. Here's a cat tarot. Really fun stickers, right? So I thought, oh, I'll get a crow. I'll get a crow for my bottle. Well, you see it's way too big for a bottle when you wouldn't even see it when I wrapped it on the bottle. But it was perfect on this cover of this book. And it's the same. You can wipe it off. And like I could wipe this off if I wanted to. Okay. Long story. I made a long story of that, didn't I? But I wanted to show you. This had everything I needed for my project. Okay. So I just basically used what I have. I want to show you. I'll show you how I did it. But I also want to show you how I organized it. Because the organization of the grimoire is... that was the problem. That was the problem for me. It's not a matter of making it pretty or whatever. But of course, what I liked about this, what this was lacking that other little notebooks do have, were tabs. So what I did was I made my own, well, first of all, yeah, I made my own tabs, which I'm going to get into. But I made my own tabs out of washi, washi tape. Because in my journaling, and all kinds of journals that I keep, I'm even keeping an ancestor journal. I use these washi tapes all the time, and I have all kinds and all shapes and sizes. But if you don't know what washi tape is, it's like it's decorative tape that we use to divide. As you saw when I was in my journal, you can divide, or it's good. You can use it as, I gotta find the end. You can use it to instead of glue if you want to hold something down. It's very thin. Okay, and it tears very easily. It sticks to paper really easy. It sticks to itself really easily. But it's like painter's tape. The blue tape that you use when you're painting. Because you can stick it. You can stick it on something. You can stick it on something, but then you can pull it off without damaging your page, right? Stick it on, and you can get it off. So it's really handy to use in projects if you're not sure, what's going to be permanent or not. So that's why I always have it on hand. So I thought, well, I always have this on hand. I always have the washi on hand. I always have the Tombos on hand. I always have the micro pens on hand because I use them for everything. And now apparently I will always have these notebooks on hand since I bought so many of them. But anyway, So I just went ahead and I decided I was going to use washi to make my tape. You know, I mean, my tabs. We didn't need many, but we needed some, okay? So I'll go into that. And then another thing you see here is, just so you know, another thing I have because of my working with a lot of my journals and things is I have, I like these sticker books. This is the Antiquarian. And I don't know, I saw somebody using this for the first time. A lot of people are using it now in their journaling. And there's, I think 3 or 4 different volumes with different kind of stickers. But it's just pages and pages of all kinds of really fun, sometimes they're kind of weird stickers, but it depends on what you're into. And then they also have, you see, dividing every sticker page, they have this beautiful, that's the back of the page. You see, here's your stickers, and everyone has this in the back. And then some of the pages have this all over design kind of thing that you're actually, most of them are actually frame pages. So you can take, I don't want to take it off, but if you bend it, you can see that this part is a separate sticker. See, that's coming up. That's a separate sticker. And then there'll be a bigger one. This is a separate sticker. So that would be things for framing. The whole page comes off. So you can use all or part of that page to make things like your frames and stuff, which is what I ended up doing. Oh, and it also in the back has letters. This particular one has letters. And see, I've taken some of the letters out. But it's just, they're really helpful and they're useful in a lot of things. So what I did for mine, this was the first page, the fly page. See, here's the one I was doing when I showed you before. They don't have that. They just have the cover, and then they start with the graph paper, okay? Because it's just meant for, you know, using the grid. But here we have, on the ones that are ones that are ruled, they have this, you know, the fly page in the front. And so I just did this, this little bird thing was actually one of those full page frames, but it was too big. But because of this paper that is behind it, you know, because of this, the backing of it, in between, because of this backing, I was able to cut, and I think I just, for this one, I just cut along this. You might not be able to see it, but it's a like a bordered line. And I made it fit the page. Here, okay? Okay, so anyway, I cut this page the same way. I cut it on one of the lines of the borders. So I just got this little frame, and then I was able to make like a title page, which I thought was kind of fun, okay? So then, my trick was, what did I want to put in my grimoire, okay? Now, grimoire might be a misnomer for some of you. Some of you might call a grimoire, a book of shadows, a grimoire, and that's perfectly acceptable. They're different uses. But for me, a book of shadows is more than something that contains like spells, and for me, it's like about my herbs, the properties, the magical properties of herbs or oils, or my recipes for my oils, or some things like that. But a lot of things about, you know, it's mostly spell work and rituals and things like that. Okay, so what was I going to be putting in here? I decided this whole book was going to be, it was going to be only home use, health and healing things, which I'm talking about brews and potions. So I have a section for brews. And there what I did is I cut out that page. I added some washi and a tab, you know, just so to divide this section, okay? And then I made this first one for brews, B for brews. And brews are my definition of brews, okay? They're between brews and potions. Brews are things that are to be ingested by drinking. They're things that are taken internally by drinking. It's some kind of a liquid, okay, or syrup or something like that, but it's taken internally. And then I have a section, which is going to be, I will show you that, and I'll talk to you why I don't have this yet, for potions. And potions are things that are they're not to be taken internally. They're things to be applied, you know, on your topically, probably on topically, or they could just be, like for instance, salves, something like a salve that is used for whatever purpose, or it could be soaps. I would include soaps, like particularly soaps made for purpose, like I want to say something like hyssop soap, which I make. I wouldn't put all my soaps in here necessarily because a lot of my soaps are just for cleansing or for, you know, even though some of the properties will help you with healing, like soothing rashes or you know, diaper rash for your baby, or calming effect, like, you know, some things are very calming. I keep all my soap recipes per se in a soap book. I have a little notebook for soaps. But in this one, like hyssop soap would be in here because hyssop is really not for pleasure. Hyssop soap is really for spiritual cleansing or to remove negativity from you. And we usually use that. Sometimes we use it for, before rituals. We use hyssop always before rituals. And a lot of people do. And I like it in soap form. So, so that would be in here. But other things would mostly likely be salves or poultices, those kind of things in this section. Okay. So I have my brews, and I have another section I'm going to have for potions. And then in the end, the last section I had is going to be, I have G. And here's another example of something that was another partial sticker. And there was a frame. And I just cut a blue, the blue center here was actually a, I'll show you what that was. This is kind of funny. I use everything. I have these little Post-it pads, and it was just the back of a pad, which is plain blue. And I stuck that underneath there so that you could see the lettering on there. So I just, again, used what I had. Nothing to be, nothing, you know, I didn't really want to go out and get anything if I could use what I have. And I encourage you to do that. Okay, and again, I made another sticker. And I will talk to you about this section when we get there. Okay, so now the organizational part. I think I'm ready to organize. I had to allot how many sections. I knew I'm going to have 3 sections altogether. A brew section, section for brews, a section for potions, and then this final section of things, you know, that I might, you know, my things, which I'll talk about in a minute. So 3 basic sections. But what I'm thinking is the back section, which I can tell you about. Let's talk about that one first, which I have G, because I have it for things that are gathered from either my garden, or they're either grown as volunteers, or I have them in there particularly. Like things, I have nettles in my garden. I have, you know, wood sorrel in my garden. I have, of course, that's a volunteer, but you know, or other places in the area, okay? And then where I have things that are gleaned, so it's gathered things, gleaned things from leftover crops of friends. Like I originally got my nettles from a friend who was always growing her garden and she didn't want it, and she was always harvesting it for me, giving it to me. A lot of farmers at the farmers markets, their leftover things they will often sell or give you, and things that are foraged in the wild, like things such as, you know, they don't have to be necessarily in the wild, but they're things that you maybe didn't plant them, but they show up. And that would include some of the things in your yard or things that show up in open fields that haven't been sprayed, or in, you know, places like that. Okay, so I wanted to be able to identify the things that were gathered, gleaned, or foraged. So I made a section for those so I can tell if I'm out in the wild what it is. Okay, so I used the whole back out of 100, this is 160 pages, which means, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, back and front. So there's 80 sheets, but that's 160 pages. So I took out the last 80 pages, and I put pictures of things that I was likely to come across, like that I've already come across or come across normally, usually, like for instance, stinging nettle, and how to identify. There's a photo, and then I look underneath. I have triangular leaves that are heavily serrated around the edges, have spines on the bottom of leaves that sting, and man, they do. And then, you know, I just have all that kind of things, and I have a little bit of the usage on some of them, okay? Here's the yellow wood sorrel. This comes up as a volunteer every year in my garden. Here's the description. Heart-shaped leaves, tiny yellow flowers with 5 petals. Okay. The leaves and flowers will close up in the evening and reopen in the morning. I have all the properties so that I can really make sure that this is wood sorrel, okay? Wild mustard I have, things that I will come across. Curly dock, plantain, both lanceleaf and broadleaf. Pictures of both. Dandelions, of course, which are wonderful. Common mallow. This is one that was new to me this year. This stuff grows up all over my yard every year in the spring. After rains, it drives my husband crazy because it's horrible looking. But that's what you saw me, first of all, putting in the little Nesco dehydrator behind me. And I will leave a link to those dehydrators behind me if you're interested in doing this yourself, so you can find them. But the that little Nesco I actually picked up at a yard sale for just a couple dollars. But they're very affordable and they're really good. And I also have a couple behind me that I will leave links to, because I do a lot of dehydrating. You know that I have shown you a lot of that in the past. But it is common mallow, which is essentially a wild okra, and it's very good to add. You can eat this in soups and smoothies, but it's not very tasty. It's you know, gelatinous, a little bit mucousy or whatever, slimy, like okra. It's supposed to be. I've never eaten okra, but I understand it. Some people don't like it because of that. But this is really good for that. But it also has some healing properties. So we'll be talking about that in a few future videos. We'll be talking about my uses for it. But in the meantime, it's only here for part of the time. So I got it, identified it, and I made sure I had the right thing. And then into the dehydrator it went. It came out of the yard, and it's coming out of the yard. There's still an awful lot of it. But this is the only time it's going to be there, right? It's not going to be there in the summer or in the winter. It's going to be there now. So we get it, and we take care of it right away. That's why we have the dehydrators. But meanwhile, then I'll know what to do with it, okay? Wild radish and nasturtium, of course, I use all the time. But look, I had left pages. And the reason I put it this way is if I want to know more about mallow, I have this page, and I have all of this to talk about mallow. So I just did one per. So that's why I saved half of my book for that. Okay. So that left 40 sheets, or approximately a little less because of the front. For me to divide in between tinctures, between brews and potions. And there's a reason I did not put this in yet. I'm just using a Post-it, which, by the way, works just as well for a tab as the washi. You don't even need the washi. If you remember my Book of Shadows, my whole Book of Shadows is full of Post-its. I mean, I use them all the time, and they stay on there really good. You can move them. But I didn't know of the first 80 pages. I mean, of the first 80 pages, how many pages did I need for brews, and how many did I need for potions? So what I did was, I put potions. Some of my potions I'm already going to do here. I have some salves, and here's some, other recipes for different kinds of salve for different uses, etc. And powders and some things. But from there, I just went up what I think approximately what I wanted. And I put the end of something that I knew I wanted at least, after the tinctures after the recipes I had up for in here, at the end of my brews, I left, a few pages. I didn't go crazy. I left a few. That's probably going to be enough. Wait, I'm after here. That's probably going to be enough, but I'm not sure. There. This is my last page under that. And I just left a few empty pages, thinking I'll probably have plenty of pages, but I wasn't sure. But I didn't finish this, because if I need more pages from this, I can take a few more pages before I put this down permanently, or the same from here. If I can, because I started from the back. So I started from the back here, and I left off here. So this could be, I could start potions here, I could start it here, I could start it wherever, depending. So I'm doing that last, but in the meantime, it's marked, and it's marked with a Post-it, if that makes sense to you. So I didn't really commit to anything permanent other than where to start. I committed to 3 sections, but, I started this, what I put in each, what I put in this one, I have, you know, in here I have it divided, and I know from here back is nothing but the things that are gathered, gleaned, or foraged back here. I know in the front what they're going to be. I know I have the 3 sections, but I can always go further on each one. See, I left pages in between. Okay, that's as good as anybody can do. You can't do any better than that. I mean, we just can't do any better than that. It's just impossible because we really don't know until we really get into it and start seeing it that way, how it's going to go. Okay, now I don't want to go on too long in the video, but I want to show you a little more how I have it organized. As you see, we talk about the brews first. And for me, a brew, again, I said, was anything that was ingested by drinking. It's a liquid. Take it internal. It doesn't have to be necessarily a liquid. I won't say that. That's kind of strange to say, but I will say it is something that is ingested by, most of the time, by drinking. I guess we would say, because that's what the idea with brews. And brews are divided further within this section. I have teas, I have tinctures, I have tonics, and I have tipples and toddies. Because, first of all, I think that's funny. But it just happened to be that those are what they are. Teas are kind of easy. Teas are things that are water-based. And I will leave this out long enough in case you wanted to copy. You could freeze the page and copy this. But they're water-based. Teas are water-based. It's not always accurate to call some of the teas, because for it to be a tea, technically, really, it has to be made from a tea leaf, like either a black tea leaf or a green tea leaf or a white tea leaf. I think there are. But like when you make chamomile tea, it's not really tea. It's actually a decoction, or I think it's a tisane. It's just another word for it, depending on whether you use. We'll talk about that in a minute. Depending on what you use. It's mostly a tisane, but a decoction would be if you're putting things like roots of something or the bark of something like cinnamon, you know, a stick, that would be a decoction. But if it was just, you know, chamomile tea, it would be technically a tisane. But for our purposes, we call them all teas because we're not have to be so silly about it. But just so you know, there's you know, properties of each. So I have teas, I have tinctures. I started out with tinctures in the beginning because I just have some of the tinctures that I know I use. I'm not a drugstore, so I don't have to use a pharmacy. And I don't sell them. I use them for my own purposes. So I know what I gather and what I, what I want to use, what works for the family. So I didn't need a whole lot of papers, a whole lot of pages. So I put that one first so I knew right away that would be limiting, and then I go on from that and have to just divide between tinctures, teas, tinctures, excuse me, the remainder, tonics, and tipples and toddies, which we will get to. But so instant, I put the tincture, and I just put how you make a tincture. And I'm going to be doing a video showing you again. I've showed you in the past. You can look at some of my older videos, but I do have information on tinctures, and I'm going to do another one with some of these things behind me are dry that I want to make a tincture. I'll bring you along with that, okay, for that. But a tincture, instead of being water-based like a tea, it is alcohol-based. And it's important that they're pretty much alcohol-based. Some people can make them out of some other things, that's okay. But the best ones, the most successful tinctures are those that are made from, they're alcohol-based. You don't get drunk on these, you take a very little sip. And again, the teas are taken for pleasure or the taste. Tinctures are for purpose. They're for purpose. You don't drink a glass of tincture. That'd just be wrong. That'd be drinking something else. That'd be a toddy or a tipple, which we'll talk about. But anyway, so I have how you make a tincture, and then these are the reasons for me making dandelion tincture, okay, what it helps you do. Why would I make a nettles tincture? Why do I want a red clover texture? And here I have a caution, because red clover is for me only and not for my husband, because it acts as a blood thinner, which he cannot have. Okay, nasturtium tincture. My goodness, my daughter Heather, I've given her that. It helps her very well with her sinus infections. So I mark that on there when it works. What it does for you, you want to make note of it. Not what it really does for me, what it does for you. Here's a lavender tincture made out of the leaves. Okay, and then I don't think I really need any more, but if I do, I have a space here. I can make another one here, here. So on the bottoms, I can always put more information about some other tinctures, okay? So that's enough extra space. So then I felt fine that I could go on. After the tinctures, I have tonics. And tonics are for purpose as well, just like a tincture, but they're not made of alcohol. They're not alcohol-based. They are made out of other things. Most often, they're based on vinegar, or they might be based on like some kind of a magical water, like a moon water that you take your water and you put it out in the light of the moon or the sun, and you get that energy into your water. Vinegars, and we've done some of those before. You've seen me do some of those. Let's see. You've seen me in the past do the 4 Thieves vinegar, and you've seen me do the fire cider, which are both based on vinegar. And then I have room for more in here. Before I left teas, I want to show you, I also have a formula to make a tea. I meant to say, just like I had the instructions here for tinctures, when I got to the teas, I have a ratio, like for the tea, if you're going to make a blend, like you're going to add something to, let's say you have green tea and then you want to add some herbs to it, it's usually 2-to-1 ratio, 2 times the tea leaves to the herbs, okay? If you want to craft an herbal blend, this is it's a formula, and I found these on the internet very easily, so you could find them yourselves. You don't have to copy mine if you don't. I don't want you to think you have to copy mine, but I'm saying I have it open here in case you wanted to take a screenshot. But there's a different kind of herbs. There are the main, your active herb, which you would have here. Maybe it's chamomile or maybe it's dandelion. You want a dandelion tea. What can you put with it? Sometimes what you put with it is to increase the taste most often. So here you can mint, helps cover up some of the funny taste, or orange peel or things like that. And then it has that which would be a supporting tea, but a supporting herb. And then you have your catalysts, the things that take it to the next level, like cayenne, maybe to get that, to help your body absorb it better, perhaps, or whatever reason. Okay, so now going back to where I was, I realize I'm going back and forth, but I wanted to just show you the organization is the most important thing. After teas, tinctures, and tonics, we have tipples and toddies. And tipples and toddies are alcoholic concoctions which are ingested for pleasure and taste, okay? What is the difference between a tipple and a toddy? A toddy is most often warm. Think of a hot toddy. You've heard of that. Okay, so this is why these are ending up in here. It's not that this is my bartender's, book. But for instance, when you talk about a toddy, do I have a toddy in here yet? I don't know if I do. Yeah, hot toddy. It's made of whiskey, honey, lemon juice, allspice or cinnamon, and water, okay? Now, a hot toddy comforts you when you're chilled. Yeah, it's usually on a cold day. But a hot toddy is often given to people who are a little under the weather, who just feel kind of achy or whatever, and it's good for what ails you, is what my mother would call it, especially during flu season or cold season, just to give you that. It's like the feeling you get if you're a NyQuil user, that feeling of warm, helps you sleep kind of a thing. That's why this would be in here, okay? That's why a hot toddy would be in here, but also because I have my own lemons. And as you can see in here, I have berries. We get berries all the time, and I grow some berries, and we grow all this citrus. And I have things that I'm going together that, well, these are also in my, in this book, in this cookbook. Well, I have I think I even said my very first thing I put in here was my grapefruit jalapeno margarita, which is like our house margaritas because we have all these things that come from the garden. I'm also developing, I have some of these recipes in here because the jalapeno tequila, I use these from things that are found in my yard. And I'm using them for a purpose. It's not just, if I have them in here, I'd have to look it up. But here I have these preparations, the tipples actually, they have to be prepared ahead of time. I have to know if I want to make any of that, I have to be able to find that. And it's not just in my recipe book. Okay, because I have a lot of recipes for jalapenos, let's be honest. And I have jalapenos stored all the time. But this tequila is something that has to be made ahead, you know. And so I would make sure I have, and we use all the time, I would make sure that it's in the house, okay? Simple syrup recipes for making any of these. Berry vodka. Because this is things that I make out, like I said, I make it out of the garden. And I'm working on a garden margarita recipe now that I have a homemade, even the orange liqueur, which takes the place of the triple sec. So I'm doing all that. So that's why they're in here. But not all, I mean, we don't drink a lot of mixed drinks. We usually only drink them for reasons, you know, But we've done this Bloody Mary in a jar. I did a whole video on how to make that during, a couple years ago, during one of my 30 days of Halloween or whatever it is. I think Bloody Mary in the jar was there. I gave you my recipe. And then, of course, I use my Amy recipes. We have a friend who used to she made her own hard, what did they used to call it? Hard lemonade. Used to buy it in a thing. But she made her own, so we used to say she just did it with vodka. Lemonade and vodka. We used to call that a hard Amy. And during the dark half of the year, I think when we had our black dinner, I made dark Amy's because it was a dark time of the year. So I put black vodka. I made black vodka in there. And then we added sometime at one point, our grapefruit jalapeno margaritas were a little strong. So as a joke, we said, we'll just add some vodka to take it. It wasn't the alcohol that was strong. It was the pepper that was really strong. So they were really hot. So we added some tequila lemonade to that. We took lemonade and we added the jalapeno tequila from that and made a hot Amy. And then we had a horny Amy, which we added ginger ale and lime slice for a horny Amy. That's kind of silly. This is how silly it is. But anyway, my point is, these are all things that have been harvested by me for a purpose, for the home purpose, not a magical purpose, but home purpose. Okay, so my feeling to you is, if you were wanting to do something like this, right here, I have just added all these pictures in the past and it's made it thick, so I just have to keep, that's the only, see how thick I've made it here? That's the only downside of this, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. Okay? If I just put some weight on that for a little while, it'll flatten that out and it won't be so hard. But anyway, now it's set up in a way that I can use it as things come in. When I identify plants, is this good for me to help provide, excuse me, is this going to be any use for me for home use? Is this going to help my health, or is this going to help healing? Something I could use for a salve for a certain reason. I need to get it out. I get it cleaned up. I get it washed and, you know, sorted first, washed well. Even though I'm washing it, only use organic, please. Don't use anything that's sprayed, because especially for a tincture, because it'll just, the concentration will, you know, every bit of the goodness of that herb is going to end up in the alcohol. The alcohol is going to extract it all. And so if there's chemicals in there from, you know, treatment of the plant, that's going to, those are going to be a stronger effect from those herbs than there would have been if you had eaten the leaf. Okay, so, but anyway, I got him inside and I get him into my I got to mention one of my dehydrators. And again, I will link those dehydrators for you in case you're interested, in everything. It's possible to do these things without dehydrators. I will say that. I want to say that for sure. It is possible, but it is difficult because, first of all, they take up a lot of room. When you see when I brought in all those leaves yesterday, I had so many. I had so much of it. And where would I put it to dry? It's not like herbs. Like when you go pick basil from your tree, you can just bundle it and hang it, if you know, for a couple weeks and then take it down. It's really easy to do. But this is not the kind of things you can just hang. Some of these things you don't want, you know, they'll just drop or whatever. You don't want your pets chewing on some of these things. It wouldn't be good for some of them, you know, so we wouldn't want to put it where they can get to it. You could do it maybe in your oven, but again, it takes so much time that it makes it into a really big job. Putting it into a dehydrator, no matter what kind of a dehydrator you have, is so much easier. It gets it out of the way, it gets it done quickly, and you can get it into the jars quickly and move on. So that's why I gave you that link. And I'm going to start, I just want to say, I'm going to start where I can, trying to give you, especially if it's an Amazon link, which is readily available to most people, because especially things like these notebooks, which I really have to say, I had so much trouble finding these. It just took a lot of time. And if I can save you time, if you want to get these notebooks for any other reason, they're really fun. So I thought if I gave you a link, it would be useful. And since I did so much work trying to find them, I decided I'm going to start doing this all the time, and I'm going to, where I can, if I can save you any time by just using my link, it will help you by saving you time, and it might help me a little bit too. So, because I will get maybe a little bit of earn a little bit of cash. I don't know what they give me. I don't know. I've never done it, so I don't know. But that's not I really want to help you. I don't think it's going to be much of anything. But anyway, let me know. I would love to see too, if you have made any, if you're have your own channel or on here on YouTube, if you have, oh, here I also have, I wanted to say I have a safe use list of herbs that are safe to use. It doesn't mean they're great tasting or anything, but these things are safe. And now here I have 40 things that are safe, which that's kind of interesting, because you don't want to have the question, can I drink this? Can I drink this? Maybe it's safe for a sap, but it might not be good to drink. So you need to know these things. So you want to incorporate into your grimoire as much as you can. Well, you're making a book of shadows. You're not usually concerned with those kind of things, because those things are not to be ingested. Those things, I don't put things in my book of shadows that are going to be ingested for people for magic purposes. I don't do that. I have oils that we use on candles or on poppets or whatever, or I have, you know, incense blends that we burn, or I have, you know, those kind of things, or things to stuff in poppets or stuffed, you know, though. But I don't ever say these things magically, if you drink this, it'll be magical for you. I don't do that. Love potions, I don't really make a love potion that way, which just because of the magical properties, you should drink it. No. You know, if it's something that you want to do, make like a tea for love, give somebody, but it has to be, then it has to have herbs that are safe. Okay. So this is another final reason why I want this completely separate from my Book of Shadows. So whatever you call it, grimoire, Book of Shadows, it's entirely up to you. But please, I hope you keep that in mind, that's really important. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for watching. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be, as I be using some of these herbs and wild things that I have found, I'm going to be showing you how I use them. So I'm going to be showing you again how to make some tinctures, or how to make some teas using them, and why. We're going to be doing some salves, things like that. So stay tuned if you're interested. I hope you are. It's really nice to be on here again, and I'm going to try to be here as much as I can. I had to replace my computer, so I was off for a long time. My computer completely died on me, and I was stuck. And I'm still in the process of trying to get new things up on my, old things up on my computer. So we'll see what I can do. So I'm a little behind, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm here now. So thank you for watching. And as always, I am Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.